What would make this an especially meaningful conversation for you today?
If I could just go over a few things that I'm struggling with, um, that would be cool. I think this is meaningful already that I'm talking to like the GOAT right now.
I
So cool.
appreciate that. I have a lot of fun doing this.
I can tell you're very thorough.
Thank you. All right. So out of the questions you sent me, what would be most impactful for you to talk about right now?
Well, the time sections. So I was doing really well with just doing the regular sections, individually, and then actually trying to do time sections. I made it through two sections and that was it. So I'm like, yeah, it's cool to, do one section, but taking 30 minutes to do one section and then there's like two or three inside, that's not helpful at all.
Oh, so you mean like doing all four games or all four passages?
Yeah.
Right. Okay. So do you think that was it games or reading comp, you think you have the most timing issues?
Games. I haven't gotten to the reading comp yet.
Okay.
So just the games.
Okay. So what are some of the strategies that you're using for games to help you solve them efficiently?
So I've been doing the deductions and the inferences, but it's easier to do them when I'm not in a time situation because when I'm timed, it's like instant anxiety. So then all of the stuff that I've learned, it's like goes out the window so I don't know if that's just the testing portion of it that I have to just keep practicing or what. But yeah, I try to do the deductions and the inferences, but didn't go too well.
So you find that when you're doing things untimed, you're able to work pretty efficiently and you're able to solve everything. It's just when you introduce the timing specifically.
Yes.
Okay. That does sound to me more like a nerves thing. It does. And that's understandable. I mean, the LSAT as a whole is obviously an important exam. So one thing to keep in mind is that while the LSAT as a whole is incredibly important, no one particular question or even one particular game or passage will make or break you. So that's just something to keep in mind.
Yeah.
You always have chances to retake, especially with the LSAT being offered more frequently than ever before.
And I think what is causing me a little bit more anxiety is that I want to enroll or at least apply for the next, 2020. So, and I know that the admission starts, from now up until like February or March. And the next test, I'm in the November test. So the next test isn't till about, I think, January or so. And so I'm like, I don't know if maybe I'm just putting a lot of pressure on November because I kind of want that score and, but I know that I need to score high because my GPA, my undergrad GPA is not that great. So.
Okay. Well, know that you do have January available to you. And I know it sounds like, well, not until January, but it used to be the LSAT was only 4 times a year. Now it's nearly every month. And so late November to mid-January isn't actually that much time. It's less than 2 months. Okay, and you could still take it in January and apply this cycle and be okay.
Okay. See, that I wasn't sure about that. And so that's what kind of had me like, I have to do well in November. Like I have to.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Okay.
So that's one thing to keep in mind. And just know that applying in January would still be perfectly fine for this cycle. And I would suggest registering for the January test, just so you have that peace of mind that you have that backup available if you need it.
Right. So, and I was just like, I'm really new to all of this because coming to law school was like a decision I made at the end of July. Mm-hmm. So, but my question is for like more of the top schools, like the top 14 schools and things like that, mostly Chicago, because that's one of my like my dream schools, if you will. I know that I read somewhere, I don't know if this is accurate or not, that it's better to apply earlier than it is to try to apply later, like towards the end of the cycle. Or does that really matter?
In general, applying earlier is better if you can.
Right.
But even 1 or 2 points more on the LSAT would make it worth applying later.
So I will say that I was struggling. Like before I got your course, I was doing Khan Academy, which was helpful in terms of the basics, just introducing me to it. When I got into your course, my mind was blown because all of the information that I didn't know, oh my gosh, it was so helpful. And I struggled a lot with grouping setups, but I've gotten a lot better with them. It's just, again, the timing thing. Like Is there something, I saw that you had the Sudoku games that I guess could help with making deductions and inferences. Do you think that that's something that I should invest in as well to improve?
I think with a timeline like yours, I wouldn't recommend anything like Sudoku. That's better if you have like years before your LSAT. But
Okay.
given that you're taking the LSAT in November and potentially January, I would stick with actual official LSAT games.
Okay. Okay.
You have nearly 400 available because you have all those old LSAT exams. Each one has 4 games. So nearly 100 LSATs means nearly 400 games. So plenty of material. Now, I know that you've started digging into the course, some of the games content specifically. What are some of the biggest takeaways you've gotten so far from the course?
Some of the biggest takeaways that I've gotten from the course have been that for me specifically, I know like the depth that's being offered. I think it takes it from, okay, this is an LR game, but this, like what's offered in the course literally gives you a step-by-step like direction. Like literally, if you have a question, it's almost practically answered in at least one of all of the videos. And like everything is so perfectly organized that it just kind of flows. Like I literally spend at least 4 to 5 hours a day in your course doing problems. For every problem I do, I go back and I watch your video. Like you have a video for every question. That's so awesome. Like, so anytime I have a question, I'm able to go back. And that's kind of been the most helpful thing for me, is really just having the step-by-step direction to know what I'm supposed to be doing and what my deductions are supposed to look like. And I think that's really been helpful, like the most helpful.
Fantastic. And I'm really glad to hear that it's been what you've needed. Yeah, that's what I try to do. I try to be comprehensive and cover every possible question a student could have. So I'm glad it's helping you. Now, I want to circle back a little bit to the question of games and how to help you get more efficient with your approach. So you'll notice one of the things I do in my explanations is I will often make use of previous work, previous hypothetical scenarios. That's one of the biggest things I do to speed up on games, because you've got the orientation question. Your correct answer to that question is an example of a valid scenario. And actually, all the answer choices that LSAT gives you for that question are LSAT's articulation of what one potential diagramming style could be. So if you're at a loss for how to diagram the setup, look at those choices. They're giving you how they think about it. And then with your correct answer, that's already one valid scenario. Then if you draw more local hypothetical scenarios for those if questions throughout the game, those are giving you more valid scenarios as well. So by the time you get to the end of the game, you might have at least 3 to 5 valid scenarios that could help you knock out those global, general, must be true questions.
Right. And to go back to what you asked, what was the most helpful? I don't know how I forgot about this, but the limited possibilities, that is a game changer. Like literally that is a game changer, because when doing deductions, you don't think about it like that. You just see all of these options. So you choose all of the options when really you should focus on the one that's the most restricted, if you will, and create those possibilities from that. That's really been very helpful too.
That's huge. Yeah, go ahead, please.
And sorry. When I was doing one of the tests, my question, I know that we shouldn't skip anything. We should definitely go back. But for instance, it was game test 62, game 1 or 2. But the question, it was a really difficult one. So in that scenario, would it be better for me to skip it and go back, or try to work through it in order to save time?
For a particular question within a game?
Like
or the game itself? The entire
game itself, yeah.
Okay, so if you're in that position, that's fine. If you have just started reading it and you're like, I have no clue how to do this, then yeah, just skip it, come back to it at the end. Everything is worth the same, so there's no sense in getting bogged down by a question that's especially difficult for you. I would always say skip things, come back when you need to.
Okay. As far as for reviewing, like, for instance, like there are questions where I miss like maybe 1 or 2, like entire like groups of like in the grouping, there's 10 problems and I'll missing one in that group. Should I go back and redo those sections, or should I just move on into something more difficult? Or what would be the better, I guess, way to go about that?
It's worth reviewing and redoing anything that you're not sure about or anything you can't answer. And so You might put that game away for a week, come back to it, and do it again. And then if you still don't know it, look up the explanations and see how others have gone about it.
Okay. And the last question that I had that I sent over to you was, I like when I'm reading it and I can see, okay, well, there's 6 here, then there's 6 spaces. So this must be some sort of like ordering game, or, they're requiring an order. If I don't necessarily know the specific titles for things, is that important? Like, should I focus on knowing, okay, this is a grouping in and out, or this is grouping selection, or what are your thoughts?
Titles don't matter. What's important is that you can relate a game that you're doing back to something you've done in the past. Ideally, one of the reasons I have you do games by type is so that you can see the patterns, because when you're doing them simply in one section of a published exam, they're scattered around. It's randomized. Right. But we've got to put a system in place so that you can understand the underlying skills and diagramming techniques for each game type. But the actual names of things are arbitrary. I wouldn't worry about those.
Okay. Well, I guess as of now, that was really my questions. But I would like to say something too, if this does go up, for anyone that is wondering about if they should take the course and you were like me, you were on the fence, I can tell you from experience that it is, I'm 2.5 weeks in, it is worth it. It is worth it. And the resources are there. This is something that's worth doing, and it's investment that I'm so happy that I made. So if you're thinking about it, take that leap. It's worth it.
I really appreciate that, Sakisha. Thank you so much for your kind words about the course. I appreciate it. What would you say is the biggest insight you got from our call today?
Well, that I don't have to focus so much on the test being in November, that I can still do January and still be okay. And that, getting that extra point means way more than just applying early with a score that still would have me on the line. Awesome. Great. I'm really glad to hear it. And I'm really glad that we connected and that I have you in the course. Thank you so much again, Steve. Thanks for tuning into the show. Please subscribe if you haven't done so already to be notified of new episodes as I release them. And feel free to reach out if you need anything at all as you move forward with your prep. I'm happy to help however I can. In the meantime, I'll wish you all the best and take care.